Hi, Kate. Welcome to What's Your Next podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So excited to have you here. I am so thrilled to have you because I've been following your romantasy journey, but then you wrote contemporary, which I love. And now you have an urban fantasy, a dark academia. I'm like all the elements that I like because I'm not a romantasy girly, but I love urban fantasy. Like I'm a Nalini saying this early, like Janine Frost, like these urban fantasy that are just set in the world at the same time, it has some fantastic elements. So I'm so excited for Half City. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm so glad that you're so excited, and those are all the books that I love as well, which I'm sure you can tell because you've read the book. Yeah, a little about myself. I'm like, what about me? I'm from LA. I grew up in Los Angeles and initially went to school to study film. I wanted to work in film and television. I loved storytelling. I loved books and movies and TV my whole life. And for some reason, I think probably because of where I grew up, it made more sense to go into film and TV than it did to go into books. But I always had said, like, maybe I'd work in publishing if I didn't work in film and TV. But I had never written anything. And then during the pandemic, people weren't really making movies. And a company that I'm working at, the movie studio, was sort of like, we were all kind of trying to find things to do, but none of our projects were going. None of the acting, there was a writer's strike, an actor strike. It was sort of just like the perfect storm of, frankly, boredom and wondering what the next phase of creative storytelling would be in my life because I didn't know if movies were ever coming back. And I discovered romantasy and read like every romantasy book under the sun. I don't know how it had taken me so long. I had always been a fantasy reader. I had always been a romance reader, but I hadn't really, I think Outlander was probably the closest to both that I had ever really loved. But my gateway drug was Sarah Maas, like everyone. And when I had that well had run dry, like I had read every single romantasy book out there, the loss was so great, I decided to write my own just for fun. And that was how I got into this, which is a very exciting, very strange, really, truly wonderful experience.
Yeah, LA has been in transition. I think, and I've been doing this for about 10 years. I've interviewed quite a few authors at this point, and quite a few who are transitioning out of screenwriting to writing books or things are getting option and specific things. And so it's a common thing that I noticed like films are not getting made, like original work is not getting made. Like now it's actually book to movie or like book specific, like writing your IP feels like a more and now common pipeline. It's interesting to hear a lot of these what we consider pandemic projects are actually now new careers and new areas that we're just exploring. It's just adding to the portfolio of careers that we get to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have so many thoughts on this because I worked as like a what I actually kept this job and continued working as a studio executive up until very recently. I only quit my job to write full time in October. So what, like two
Yeah.
months ago?
Oh my
So that's
goodness.
it. Yes, very exciting, scary, but wonderful. But anyway, I digress. What I was gonna say is for so many years from when I graduated college until October of this year, I worked as a studio exec. And that was my biggest complaint as well. I wasn't writing my own original screenplays or anything, but I was a movie maker and a movie goer who felt like there was never anything original getting told. The most kind of exciting original story that I have seen recently was Sinners. And that was sort of a big part of the conversation, which was like, this is totally original IP, just like something that is not based on some pre-existing like Disney library or whatever. And I was having trouble getting things made that I loved. I'd read some original script or I'd hear a pitch from a writer director. And it was really hard, even being on the studio side, to get anything made. And so that was a huge part of it. Like when I wrote A Dawn of Onyx, I think I was just like so hungry to do something that felt really creatively fulfilling. And a lot of the stuff I was working on was not creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it's so funny. When I wrote the book, I was like, I was talking to friends and it was like, no, you don't understand. It's so incredible. I get to have full creative control. Like whatever I want the characters to do, they go do. And then the book is done. And there's no director you have to appease or agent who has to make the deal for the actor or, this, you want to set it in this setting, but the tech scout says that'll be too expensive. So now it's set here in Albuquerque instead of Greece. And everyone was like, yeah, duh. That's why it's like, of course, authors have a lot more creative control than like some person who's a small cog in the wheel of a big studio. But yeah, I totally agree. And also to your other point, so many people discovered things that they really loved career-wise, but also just about themselves in the pandemic. So for such a tragic, dark time, I do think that there was sort of the silver lining that a lot of people were sort of forced to reckon with themselves, like what they actually like to do and like what really brings them joy in a vacuum. And then hopefully people were a lot braver than me and they actually went and just did it and didn't try to do the pandemic thing they loved and the original job for the next 5 years. It took me a long time to
I think we all have to. I think in this economy, unfortunately, we kind of have to do both. Let's
Oh,
pursue
yeah.
it and grow it and stuff. I've been doing it for 10 years, but the pandemic
Yeah.
shepherded one way to where it was moving forward. And
Yeah.
even that, it's been 5 years of working both things. And I was just talking to a coworker. I somehow became bored in my job. Like I did not plan to do this. And I work
Yeah.
in a non-book related job.
Yeah.
It's nothing related, but it's just part of like where we are, this place of having the space to have creativity. I think the pandemic gave us permission to explore that creativity
Yeah.
and those
Yes.
hobbies and those interests.
Yes.
And then as a good millennial, we're like, we gotta monetize it.
Yeah, turn your hobby into money until you hate your
Yes.
hobby, right?
Make it side hustle. Like it's the girl
Yes.
boss. We're in the post girl boss era. We
So
gotta
true.
do something. We gotta make this work.
It's so unbelievably true, and it's so funny, I mean, everybody that I would talk to post-pandemic was like, "Oh, I wrote a pilot in the pandemic," or "I started my own clothing line in the pandemic," or "I started making my own, like, tea cozies and selling them on Etsy," or "I started a travel blog of things to do in my local neighborhood that were, like, safe and social distanced," and then by the time that was over, it became like a travel blog and I was going to Italy. So many people found something, but then you're right, it's so hard to reconcile the thing you do for your heart with when the world kind of starts back up again and, like, the economy is terrible and we have to make a living, the job that pays the bills that maybe
Yeah.
you realize now you don't love that much. I mean, I think on some level I knew deep I don't know. I liked my job. There's a lot of things I liked about my job, but I never felt like, "Oh, if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life." That was never how the job felt to me. And then when I started writing, I really started to hate it because I knew what it felt like to do
Yeah.
something that I loved with all my heart and frankly, make money doing it. That
Yeah.
was the other thing. It was like, I wrote this book, I never thought anybody would read it, and then I indie published it, and it was successful enough to make amount of money. I was like, "Wait, the thing I love can earn me dollars,
Yeah.
and I have to somehow not do that full time? It's torture." But it was no one's fault but my own. A lot of braver people jump in with both feet into writing full time as soon as they're making any kind of living wage. I was so terrified of giving up this job that I had built my whole life around. It took me a long time to
Yeah. It takes a lot of brave action to take that uncomfortable because you can't control the unknown. You can't control the
Yeah.
future. And we have specific things. And I think you kind of have to get the proof in the pudding because sometimes people jump really quickly and then they're just like, the net will appear. And sometimes the net doesn't appear and you're scrambling. I think there's a path to do it. Every person has their own level of comfort with risk and assessment and what works for us and stuff. Seeing where it can go and trusting your process, not what other people are doing and not what the
Totally.
society tells you to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of bad advice. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people selling you something, selling
Yeah,
you a
no,
dream.
that's so true. On both sides, there are people that are like, if you love something, just jump in and don't think about it for another second. Follow your heart. And you're like, okay, but like I have a mortgage.
Yeah.
Is your plan for that? If my
I need
next book
health
is similar.
insurance.
Yeah. Oh my God, exactly. And then you had people who were like, you can't pursue writing full time, like writing about fairies. That's not a real job. That's a hobby. And then to those people, you're kind of like, well, that's bad advice too. I'm going to follow my dreams. That's something that I believe in. So you're right. At the end of the day, it's like an extremely personal decision,
Yeah.
and there is no right or wrong way. And I feel like, you know, I don't look back and wish that I had quit sooner because it's like everything had to sort of fall into place in a certain way for it to be a decision that I didn't regret or that I wasn't so scared that I couldn't do it. And
Yes.
that just happened to take me personally like 3 years to do. So that's just,
Okay. So talk to us about your transition from indie publishing to then getting a book deal and writing for contracts and then having a publisher and having deadlines and specifics and how you be accountable to others. Because even though you get to create the world, similar to
yeah.
making a movie, a book needs
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
made.
No, totally. It's a great question. Yeah, my experience was pretty, I don't know, I was gonna say uncommon. No, that's the word I'm looking for. Not the usual process, but actually, I think this is happening more and more. I indie published my book, A Dawn of Onyx, and it wasn't like some kind of insane, like stratospheric success, but it was successful enough that I was getting message emails and DMs and messages from people asking about audio rights and translation rights and book events and conventions, and I had no team and I had no agent and I had no representation. So I didn't really know how to field a lot of these things. So I went to a friend, an agent, like an industry agent that I knew from my day job, and asked her if she would just do me a favor and do some of these deals for me. And I'll take you to lunch. Just help me do this like audio deal. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, sure. And she takes a look at it and she's, oh no, like you need a real, like you need a literary agent. This is more than I can take on. It's also more than I know how to do. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go query my book. But I was like, can you query a book that's already out in the market? Like I didn't really know the process. And I was very lucky. It was an extraordinary privilege. She said, I know a literary agent that I think will love your book. That actually I knew this agent from optioning a few books of her clients on my day job side. She sent the book over to my agent, Taylor, and Taylor responded and ended up wanting to work with me. And then it was her idea. She was like, I was just thinking, help me do some of these like audio deals, these foreign rights deals. And she said, let's put the book on sub. Let's try to take this to a traditional publisher and maybe they'll publish the rest of the trilogy. So we went out on submission and the book was preempted by Berkley. And then at that point, we pulled it from Amazon and the rest of the series, Peridot and Rose, Promise of Peridot and A Reign of Rose, was released by Berkley. And then I did a second contract with Berkley. So If Not For My Baby, my first contemporary, and then this book, Half City, that we're going to talk about, and the rest of that trilogy are all going to be with Berkley. And I hope, knock on wood, the rest of my career is with Berkley because I love working with them. So to answer sort of the second part of your question, it's interesting. Yes, there is unlimited freedom in indie pub. Your cover is whatever you want it to be. Your back blurb is whatever you want it to be. The deadlines are your own making. There are no rules. You can publish at whatever tempo you want, however many books you want in a series, whatever. And that is obviously not the case in trad pub. You have an entire team of people who have a say in what your cover looks like, when your book is, what date is released, how much time comes between books, what is in the books. You have an editor and a copy editor and a proof editor and like a team of people. So I'm sure to some, I can totally understand why that would be not the path they want to choose, maybe suffocating, maybe would hamper the creative process. I am like a total dork and I love rules and I love homework and I want people to tell me, like, when I'm in therapy, I'm like, so what do I do here to succeed therapy? And she's, no, that's not how therapy works. I'm like, when do I get my gold star that I finished and I did it right? She's, no. So I live my whole life like that. And I personally really thrive with all of the sort of like rules and regulations. It allows me to feel like tethered. I think the world of indie pub was so hard because I just felt, well, how do I do it right? And everyone's like, there is no right. I was like, I don't want to hear that. Tell me how to do it right. And in trad pub, I say to my editor, like, okay, but in your opinion, you've been doing this a long time, do you think this should be the title? When do you think this should come out? I defer to her and to the team and find a lot of peace in that and a little bit of, it's only my job to write the story and everything else is like a little bit out of my hands and that takes a lot of pressure off of me. So I have no complaints. I love the system. I even love the deadlines because if no one gives me a deadline, on one hand, like, I'll never stop working because I'm, like, addicted to writing and I will do
Yeah.
it. Just my friends and my family members, I will wake up in the morning and write all morning, and then I will go to work or used to go to work, and then I would come home and write all night. So the deadlines give me some kind of break to know, well, you can't just eventually, at some point, you'll have written everything that you're contracted to write. But also, then sometimes there's that procrastination in all of us, and it's really helpful to know there's no wiggle room. This has to be done by this date. So yeah, I have no complaints. I love the transition. It works really well for me.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And yes, I do have a gold star and went to therapy multiple times. So I was like, tell me how I succeed, how I make
Yeah.
how I'm the favorite patient. Because it's not even
Yeah.
to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be my therapist's favorite patient. And
Oh, 100.
that's the whole point, the model patient.
Of course. I wondered, like, wow, you can't be fixed any further. You have
I
succeeded.
I've trust me, I've gotten to a point where it's just, "You're just having mega problems right now." And I was like, "But you don't understand. These are major problems." It's just, "No, they're really you're not. Like, you're fine. You need to learn how to rest. You need to
Oh
learn
my
how to
god.
reset."
Totally. 1,000,000%. I know. Us type A girlies have to stick together.
Yes, this what do you mean? Eldest daughter?
Yeah. Fully. Oh, yeah. Oldest of 4. Oldest child of divorce. Rest? What do you mean
Yes.
rest?
I was a parent when I was a
Yeah. Yeah.
kid.
I mean, wow. A kindred spirit.
All right, let's talk about Half Steady. We've been teasing
Yeah.
about it. It's urban fantasy. It's a demon hunter, academic, like dark academia. Talk to us about this trilogy. What's the setup? Because it's the first book in the trilogy. There is a cliffhanger. I know we gotta wait. It is okay. Talk to us about it. As I said, it has some elements. It reminds me of Gill Hunters, the Art Lily saying that urban fantasy kind of set up in the real world, but same time, there's like some sort of demons and stuff that we gotta deal with.
Yeah, totally. So, yes, you hit the nail on the head. It's a dark academia, urban fantasy. I'm not great at pitching it, but I've been saying it's like if Buffy the Vampire Slayer went to the spooky Yale School of Ninth House, but at the combat college of Fourth Wing and the like forbidden paranormal romance of Vampire Diaries or Mortal Instruments or whatever. And, like, kind of the lingering mystery of Wednesday. I don't know. It's got a
Yeah.
lot. There's a lot cooking, but kind of the primary log line, the hook of the book is a 21-year-old demon hunter living in a kind of reimagined version of New York City that is bisected by this enormous chasm that sort of serves as a gateway to hell. The average person doesn't know about this, but of course she knows, and her job is to hunt and slay deviants, which basically means all things that go bump in the night, werewolves, vampires, demons, and the like. And she thinks she's alone in the world, that she's the only person that's doing this. Her father taught her everything she knew, and then her father was killed until she meets sort of like a reformed demon, sort of an angel from Buffy, if you will. It's like he is the bad thing, but he's striving every day to fight that internal nature, who recruits her to go to a college that trains people like her. So it becomes sort of the story of like her and this demon at this demon hunting college. And then, of course, things start going very awry at the demon college, and she and the demon must work together to figure out what's going on. So you've got like enemies to lovers, forbidden romance, teacher student, although everybody is age appropriate. It's like college. It's more like Zayden and Violet. And there's also all the tropes that I love, which is all the different creatures, all the good creatures, all the bad creatures, all the magical powers, all the different lands. But then I also love the city setting. I went to NYU and fell very in love with New York and miss it every day. Love LA, love the weather, but I do miss New York. And so, in some ways, even though it's a totally different city, this is like a love letter to New York. And so, there's also a lot of scenes that I love throughout the trilogy. Cute little wine bars downtown and like the Upper West Side imagined sort of version of the city. And there's a museum that sort of serves as like my Met or Smithsonian that she works at by day as an assistant, and a nightclub that is sort of like seedy and twisted with an interesting nightclub owner. I think it's like the richest world that I have written thus far, and I've had so much fun with it. And yes, it's the first of a trilogy. It comes out February 17th. The good news is the second and the third really don't take that long. If you are a fan of my work and had read my previous trilogy, they came out every 6 months. It's not quite that, but it is less than like a year apart between each one. So people will not have to wait too long. And yeah, that's the premise.
I think that this book is a great entry level for someone who is intimidated by romantasy, who think like this is gonna be a hard world building and like hard stuff to learn. Like this feels very grounded in reality. And it's a great entry point for those who are like, I'm intimidated by romantasy. I don't know what to do. This is urban fantasy, which is set in a city, set in a world that you may understand. You may find yourself living in this world, and then all the creatures are happening, and I think it has the elements of the school and the elements of the city life that helps you just go into this world and just dive into it.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. Yes, that was what I was going for.
yes. Yeah, so it's more like it's the kind of fantasy that I love because I love the fact it's hard for me to get into a different world, a different like understanding those different things. I'm like, no, I just need to be grounded in reality and then have like werewolf and demons and vampires and stuff like And
Totally.
this was, like, such a relief when I, like, started reading. I was like, "Oh, this is the kinda one that I like."
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, it's like fantasy light. They can text, they can email, like people can use cars. I wrote
Yeah,
my first trilogy is in a world where it's like medieval fantasy. It's like when Roses played a prisoner, like any of those kind of
yeah,
I'm thinking about the books that really inspired me. There's no modern conveniences
yeah.
and that can be very escapist and fun. But it was so fun to write this. It's our world. People are going to the movie theater, but then there are demons in the movie theater. It's like we just up it a little.
Yes, it's like a grown-up Buffy.
Correct. I mean, arguably my favorite TV show of all time. A
Yeah,
lot of Buffy influence in this book for sure.
awesome. Alright, so what kind of books do you tend to read? Do you read fantasy, romance, or just out there thrillers?
Like, I was like, I don't read at all. I've never read a book. I always think about that, like, because it's so sad when you start writing a lot, your reading goes down so much. I
Yeah,
used to be I mean, this is nothing compared to I'm sure your listeners and lots of readers who read way more than this, but I used to read like a book a week. There was like always
yeah,
some book on my bedside table. That has died. That has gone out the window since I started writing, which is a tragedy. Before I started writing, I was like exclusively fantasy, including this kind of fantasy, like more grounded fantasy, and romance. And I would sort of just take turns each time. I'd read like a fun paperback contemporary romance, and then I'd read like a big fantasy trilogy, and then sort of like a palate cleanser romance, and that was the zone I lived in. Candidly, since writing, I find it really hard to read in the genre I'm writing in. So when I was writing the Sacred Stone series, that was A Dawn of Onyx and the other two in the series, I really kind of stopped reading fantasy and I only read contemporary romance. And then when I started writing If Not for My Baby, which was my contemporary romance, I kind of couldn't read contemporary romance anymore. And I was still sort of working on Half City as well, so I kind of still couldn't read fantasy, and so you'll be surprised, you kind of guessed it. I mostly read thrillers now because it sort of checks the box of, like, heart-pounding, edge of your seat in the way fantasy and romance do, but it doesn't feel like I'm always thinking about how it relates to my work, or if you read in the at least for me, if I read in the genre that I'm writing, my brain can only go 2 ways. It's either "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" Or "I wish that I had done that," or "Oh my god, that moment was so swoony. I wish I hadn't read it so I could have come up with it," or whatever.
yeah.
Or it's, "Oh, people are gonna think because I read this, I took from this," or "This is so similar," or "Oh god, does this compare to my book?" It's so hard to not think like that. So, yes, right now, I'm mostly reading thrillers. However, my hope is I'm currently on deadline for the last book in the series, which is crazy because you guys haven't even read the first one and I read the last one. But when that is done, I'm really hoping to take a little break and get back into my fantasy roots. It's been a long time since I read like a great big fantasy series. So I'm going to try to go back to that when I'm not actively on deadline anymore. So
Yes, and there's quite a few new ones, so you
right,
have
I'm
plenty
so
to
behind.
choose.
If I were to tell you all the amazing books that I have not read, I would be
Yeah,
excommunicated from the fantasy community.
yes, and my email is, like, full of romantasy.
There's so many.
There's
It's
so
impossible.
many. I was like, I remember being dire need, like, 10 years ago and only reading, like,
Yes.
3 fantasy. Now I'm
I mean, that was my
more.
experience completely, like, when I discovered Court of Thorns and Roses, and then I read a lot of Jennifer Armentrout, and then I read
Yeah,
the Prisoner series and Carrie Maniscalco, and that was sort of that was my formative experience in fantasy
yeah,
romance, but then there weren't that many other options. Now, you couldn't if you tried, you could
and
never read everything that's out there.
they're not, like,
Yeah.
15.
I know everyone's growing up, which I do because as I get older, I want the characters to get older. In
Yeah,
fact, in Half City, she was originally like 27. Then
yeah,
because of the college element, we had to age her down. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm sort of like next time we're gonna get older and older with each book.
I'm glad that you're writing in this genre, and I'm glad you're adding more to the genre than needed. But it's a wonderful time to be in a romantasy or fantasy, a fantasy romance or urban fantasy reader, like any type of fantasy specific place.
Well, that
Wonderful.
was also another reason why I was really excited about this because I felt a little like I can't compete with all of the fantasy romance anymore. There's so much fae, there's so much sort of sword and sandal, dragon, like big fantasy. I don't want to keep trying. I did that with A Dawn of Onyx. We had dragons, we had swords, we had fae. And I sort of felt like maybe urban fantasy is a way to stay in the space that I love and appeal to the readers that I connect with and that like my work and that we all read the same sort of things but do something that maybe is a little bit different. I think obviously, like, I'm not breaking the mold at all with urban fantasy, but at least it's sort of like a subgenre of the big genre. And that I hope, I mean, it's way too early to be talking about anything else, but the next trilogy that I want to write after this is another version of stepping a little more outside of the fantasy romance space and like trying to push the boundaries every time so it feels a little new and fresh.
I'm a urban fantasy. If I have to choose a type of
Yeah.
one, like I love Alana Long, I love the Hidden Legacy series, I love the Gill Hunters. I'm not a side changeling. I know blasphemy, but I love
Well,
the
no.
hidden. Like I love the side of New York. I love the grittiness of a city and the specifics and coexisting. I'm a city girl. I lived in New York for
Yeah.
a long time, and so
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the idea of having this other world coexist and not bigger grittiness of the city. So when I look at fantasy, it's hard for me to understand this whole world that I'm learning. I'm like, no, I just want to know some basic
Yeah.
things and then have this world on top of it. Kind of like a
Yeah.
overlay of what you're
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel the exact same way.
So, Kate, tell us where we can find you online.
Yes. Okay. You can mostly find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. Kate Golden Author at Kate Golden Author. I am also on TikTok, though it's run by my PA, but we post a lot of really fun reels and teaser, spoiler, spicy TikToks. You can find me there on at Kate underscore Golden underscore author. And then the last place is my newsletter, which is my Substack newsletter. It's called Kate Dates. You can find it just by Googling like Kate Dates Substack, or you can find it through the link in my bio on Instagram. I send one every other month. There's 6 a year. It will not cloud your inbox, but I put all the best like ARC giveaways and art. And if you want to get early copies of things or read teasers, all the best goodies are in the newsletter.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate, for being on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was such a blast.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.